Welcome everyone to the Proven Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Church. I'm a music producer from Northeast Ohio. I began this weekly interview series to give you different perspectives from artists, producers, engineers, and other individuals in the music industry. In each episode, we touch on not only what has helped the person succeed, but we also touch on what has shaped them into the person that they are today. I hope you're able to gain some real proven knowledge from the show, and that it helps elevate you on your own journey to success as well. Let's get into it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 228 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today I welcomed a producer from London. His name is Fr1th. I actually discovered his music in springtime. I remember I was at my day job one day, and I was scrolling on social media, and I saw that Mellow Music Group had just signed a new producer. So I remember getting home that day, checking out his music, his back catalog, ended up checking out his album called Mind Blossom that dropped in June, and I ended up reaching out to him probably like a month or so ago just to ask him randomly if he wanted to be on the show. Didn't even know if I was going to get a response, but luckily and fortunately he got back to me and said yeah, he'd love to be on the show. So we made it happen this week, and it was a super awesome conversation. I learned a lot more about him. Even just being a fan of his music, I didn't really know a lot about him as a person, but he talked with me about his beginnings in production around 2003, learning FL Studio, just being able to create and collaborate with a lot of cool people. He discussed how he met the group over at Mellow, which obviously, if you guys don't know, Mellow Music Group is based in Arizona. They signed producers like Apollo Brown, Odyssey, a lot of different artists as well have worked with that label, and I'm a huge fan of everything that they got going on over there. But he talked about developing that relationship, how they found him through Bandcamp and what that meant to him. He also discussed being able to do different live shows and how touring is going to be a big goal of his moving forward. He also discussed how he's working on a new project that's going to be released through Mellow very soon. So I'm very excited for all the different things he's working on and things he has coming soon. And I really appreciate him for getting back to me this week. And I hope you guys can take a lot from this episode as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. So welcome everyone to episode 228 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today we have a really awesome producer based in London. Been following this guy's work for the last few months actually. Happy to have him here today. Everybody welcome Fr1th to the show. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you so much, Anthony, for having me on the show.
Absolutely.
It's amazing that you've asked me.
Absolutely. Well, I got to say, man, I'm a big fan of your work and what you've been doing. And like I said, I just got into your music like earlier this year, and I'm happy to have you here. So we kind of have the guest at the beginning give some background. How long have you been doing music? How did you get into it initially? Just for those that might not know you and what you do.
Yeah, that is a good question. I'm in my 30s, and I started making, the program I use is FL Studio. Like, it was called Fruity Loops, like years and years ago. And that was about 2003, I believe. So I was in like year 8 in high school, secondary school. Mm-hmm. And my older cousin had like a cracked version of it. It was like Fruity Loops 3 back then. And I think he had had enough of me and my little cousin just like playing on the PS2, I think we were playing. He was like, try this and get out of my hair kind of thing. And he just let us onto this this software. And I remember one of the first things we did was like we tried to remake some tunes that we heard on the TV. And I think ever since then it just stuck with me. I asked him for a copy, and I've been doing that ever since, really.
Yeah.
So
what year was this then? What year do you think this was?
That was 2003.
Yeah. Nice. So you're looking at 20 plus years now at this point of really being kind of having it involved in your life and everything. So yeah, that's incredible, man. Because I found your work, I think in like the springtime, and it was around the time when they announced like you signing to Mellow and things like that. And I just started checking out your stuff, and I didn't really see a ton of like, I don't know how many interviews you've done, but I didn't really see a ton of stuff. So I'm like, it'll be interesting to get you on here today kind of learn more about you. So that's pretty awesome, though. It's been that long. You've kind of had it involved in your life and everything like that. So I know that earlier this year you dropped Mind Blossom, which is your new project. Incredible album, by the way. Huge fan of it. Dropped in June. So kind of give us the story behind that, since it is the most recent body of work that you've put out. How does that compare to like some of the other projects you've done, like Gumbo, things like that? Other projects you've done, like how does Mind Blossom stack up, and really what was the creation process like for you?
Yeah, Mind Blossom was probably my first like major project that I put out in terms of like the number of tracks, but also how long it took me to kind of get it to the finishing point. I think some of the tracks I started creating them in like 2017 and kind of really had the whole thing done by the end of 2019. I play in a band with a singer called Jerome Thomas. We kind of started together back at university days, like in 2009. We started the band together, and we were rehearsing around 2017 for a gig. And one of the tracks, Nostalgia, that's on the album, just came from a jam from that. That's where the melody was created, and I was like, oh, I love this, I love these chords. Took it home, and then from that melody, I took it and turned it into another track, which was like where the whole reprise thing kind of comes into play. So you've got like Nostalgia reprise, and you've got what's the other one? The Loneliest Monk and the Loneliest Monk reprise. So kind of just like taking melodies and morphing them or changing time signatures and trying to keep a theme going throughout the album. Instrumental music is something that I really enjoy. So I love listening to like just like Jay Dilla beats, Mad Lib beats, but also like some classical music and jazz. So I think on there I've got 2 tracks with vocals, but I try to keep the rest just instrumental to kind of stick with that vibe and that influence that I've got.
Yeah. And I remember when they announced the album, I ended up checking out, because I kind of like to go back in people's back catalog and check out like what they've done already. And this was before the album dropped. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll be on the lookout for the album. I think I heard like Roadman from Gumbo was probably the first track I heard, which I love that track, and probably Supercluster. And I was like, oh, I love like the style in there. And then I remember when the album dropped, I was like, if this feels like an extension of what he's done, but it's evolved even more, and like the sound is even more refined. Currently, I'd say Drip and Shades of Beatrice are the ones that I'm still coming back to the most, honestly.
Nice one.
Yeah, so I did want to ask about Shades of Beatrice, because that voicemail on the track, like, is there a story behind that? I feel like I heard it and I was like, is there a story behind this? I didn't really like connect the dots, or is it just like in there because you heard it and you were like, I want to add this in? I gotta know.
Yeah, I mean, I wish there was a story behind it. I have no idea who that person is.
Okay. Okay.
I'm trying to remember where I got the inspiration from. I can't pinpoint exactly which album or which artist it is, but it's like, if you remember like skits, I don't know if you how you would have like, for example, like Ludacris album, and there'll be like 2 skits in there, or Busta Rhymes would be like some skits. So it's like that kind of, where it's no one's like rapping or singing, it's just like conversations happening or like scenes that you can kind of imagine. So it was kind of like just throwing something like that in there. And I can't find the website anymore, but it was a website which just had loads of old, I don't know if you're old enough to remember, but like when someone left a message on your answering machine, it was like a tape, and it would just like, someone would call in, if they didn't connect, it would go through and record it onto that tape. So it's like it was a website that just had loads of old random ones, and I was like, oh, this one sounds interesting, I don't know what's going on here. So I'll put that one in. Because
I needed to know. I'm like, now that he's here, I gotta ask him, because I remember hearing it and I was like, it caught me off guard, but then it picks back up in the beat too, and I was like, wow, that's like incredible the way he did that. But yeah, I'm sure there's some type of story behind it. Whoever that is, they probably know what that is. So yeah, for sure. But you mentioned, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm hoping if anyone does hear it and they're like, "Oh, that's me," they could just like contact me and say, "Yeah, this is what the story was." But we'll see.
They might come back for feature credit. I don't know, but who knows? But you mentioned that you worked on a lot of this in like 2017 through 2019, and obviously 2019 was 5 years ago. So was there a distinct like reasoning for waiting as long as you did to release this body of work? Was it more of like you wanted to release it with the right group of people? Like having your relationship with Mello now, was that a big part of the decision making in that? Or was it just like you wanted to keep refining it and kind of like getting it to a good place before you felt good about it?
This is kind of like we try not to like use the word re-release because the algorithm and all that kind of like stuff, but I had already released this in March 2020, and that's how I met Mello. Not in 2020, but because they heard the album, they wanted to kind of like give it a re-release along with some other stuff that's coming in the future. Spoiler alert, but yeah. So this has already been released, this album, and they kind of wanted to like do that whole re-release again with like vinyl and some other stuff. So I think it just connected so much with them that they wanted it to try and push it a bit more out there. So like give me the opportunity to film like videos for it, put some money into advertising and stuff for it. So it's been a really big help. And the guys at Mello, they're amazing. So I'm really thankful that they were feeling the project and
for sure
did that. Yeah.
And when did that happen? Was that a couple years ago when all this happened, when you initially got contacted, or?
That was last year.
Yeah.
They reached out to me on Bandcamp, actually. They sent me a message on Bandcamp, and it kind of just spiraled from there. So yeah, it's been about a year since I've known, since I've been in contact with Mello.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, obviously Mello's, primarily an independent label. They have people like Apollo Brown, Odyssey, all those sorts of artists and producers. And I think they're based in Arizona, I believe, is kind of where they're based out of. So have you been like out to the States to like meet with them and kind of work on things from there? Or have you just been kind of remote working on like these different projects and the different things you guys have been collaborating on?
Yeah, a lot of remote work. I was in the States for like a personal vacation, but hopefully in the future I do get to go out and kind of meet them in person, face to face, work on some stuff. But yeah, it's been a lot of remote work, and I think just from like COVID and lockdown and stuff like that, it's kind of how I've been working a lot with other artists and stuff. So kind of gotten used to that, but I do like the kind of in-person collaboration, like going to the studio. I'm thinking of like D'Angelo's Voodoo album, all the great albums that I love, like where you had like 20 or 30 people in an area and you're like, everyone's vibing off each other, and you go to the next studio and Erykah Badu's in that studio, and it's just like that kind of aspect I do appreciate. And want to find a way to get into. So yeah, hopefully I get to go out to see Mello and the guys out there.
Hey there, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just wanted to take a quick minute out to let you know about a couple different ways that you can support the podcast. One of the ways is by clicking that support the podcast button within your streaming platform. That is if you want to be a monthly supporter of the show. You can contribute either 99 cents, $5, or $10 a month. So that's the first way, and that's the more traditional way that we've had now for the last couple years. The other method that we actually just recently introduced is from our good friends over at Ko-fi. Ko-fi is a virtual tip jar. We have set our limit to a minimum of $10, but you can go make one-time, one-off donations. So if you visit coffee.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast, you'll be able to donate. And all these different forms of donation go towards getting new guests every single week, getting potential sponsors on board to do giveaways, and overall just making the show better for you guys. So if you want to do that coffee link, it's ko-fi.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Otherwise, again, look for that support the podcast button in your streaming platform if you'd like to be a monthly supporter. And I just want to say thank you guys for your contributions. And without further ado, let's get back into the episode. I think that's the beauty of where we're at now too, is we get to do both. You know what I mean? Like we kind of have the option of we can work on our own stuff, or we can work like do collaborations over Zoom and FaceTime and things like that. But then we can also do how it's always been done, which is get together and make some music and hopefully make something really cool, and work on some different things as well. So I know you've been doing, like on your YouTube channel, you've been doing the behind the beats. I think you did the one for Nostalgia already. Is that something you're going to keep doing, like with other songs on the project and kind of moving forward? And like, how have you been approaching, just content in general for social media and things like that?
Content for social media. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I think I fell into the full sense of security. Like during lockdown and everyone's just on social media. So it was like, wow, these videos, they're doing so well. Loads of people are seeing them and people are checking out my music. That's great. And then ever since then, it's kind of just like
declined.
That kind of engagement is it's just declined. Which I actually do appreciate, because then you kind of have to think of, well, maybe I just need to get out into like the real world and figure out how to engage people without having that screen in between you and the person, like actually in person, and playing live shows and promoting your music in other ways. But for your original question, I think I want to try and do some more YouTube videos for like the tracks, kind of diversify, move away from just posting things on Instagram a lot, and that kind of tutorial, because I'm a teacher, like that's my full-time job, teaching. So like doing that on YouTube, it felt quite comfortable. Obviously I can improve, but like I felt like, this is something I'd want to do with other tracks and more projects in the future. So there will be more to come for that. Yeah,
I remember I watched that one, and I always feel like I can understand FL Studio ones better because that's the DAW I use. I feel like when I'm watching Ableton or like Logic Pro, I'm like, I don't even know. I get like some of the technical stuff they're trying to tell me, but then I'm like, I don't even get what they're doing, but they're making like incredible stuff with it. So when I saw you had FL, I'm like, at least I understand like what he's doing and like creating the tracks that way. But I'll definitely be on the lookout for those as well. And I didn't know that you were a teacher as well. So like that kind of brings up a good question, which is, what are the parallels between like that and what you do in production? Is it kind of like production is just, your real passion on what you do there, or do you have like a real knack for teaching? And what do you teach? And like tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I started teaching in 2014, high school, and then now I'm working as a tutor at a university. So it's English is the main subject that I teach, and it ranges from like essay writing, dissertation writing, helping students manage their time and things like that. So a lot of organization and writing aspects. So music is the number one. I think if I had the chance to say like do music full time, that is where I would go down that route. And in terms of like making music, it's more of like just a way to express like myself and tell stories. So like Mind Blossom, I think Mind Blossom is my favorite album because it does have a theme melodically going throughout. People can like hear, I can hear like certain melodies in certain tracks, and I know that I did it there, I also did it there, I also did it there. Whereas some of my other, I think my next favorite project is Supercluster, but it doesn't have that same melodic kind of theme that Mind Blossom does.
Yeah.
Because I'm a sucker for melodies. I love melodies. But yeah, I think music is the number one.
Yeah. And that's awesome. It is great to have something else too, I think, to kind of, be able to do as well on top of music. Do any of your students know that you produce as well? Like, is that a thing that they know, or they just know you as
Yeah, when they leave, when they finally leave my when they finally like graduate, I'm like, yeah, by the way, and they're like, what? Why did you tell us? I'm like, because I don't want you like stalking me on like social media or whatever. So I try and just leave that. But yeah, they do appreciate it, because then they see you as like a human being and not this robot that turns up every day and like barks orders at them. Tells them what to do. So like they do really like that and appreciate it.
Yeah, because I imagine it's definitely like the wearing two different hats thing. You know what I mean? Because you really gotta like wear your teacher hat for that part, and then like go be a musician for the other part as well. But that's awesome, man, and congrats on being able to do that, and honestly help like the younger generation too, because I think it is very important in that way. And I honestly think through doing like those tutorials or like the beat breakdowns, that's another form of education too. You know what I mean? Through the music and stuff, and people can learn a lot through that as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing like what you do moving forward with that content. And I always like to ask, if you have anyone that you want to shout out on this show, whether it be collaborators or just like anyone in general you want to let people know about.
Definitely. Like as I said before, I mentioned Jerome Thomas. Like, I think he's the reason I started playing, not the reason I started playing piano, but the reason I started wanting to take it more seriously, because he wanted to start this band. And I literally started playing piano that year when I met him, because I've been producing before that, but never really played piano. I played a little bit guitar. But I was like, if I want to stay in this band, I need to take this seriously. So I started teaching myself all the chords and all the scales and all that kind of stuff. So big shout out to Jerome Thomas for being on this musical journey with me. Christian Frappier, who's a sax player, amazing sax player. He was in the band as well. Styles Davis, an amazing producer. Jake Milliner, an amazing producer from London. So both from London. There's just so many. There's like, and I know I'm missing so many people, but Obey, they were on the My Blossom album. Great duo from, where are they from? I think they're from Arizona as well. I'm not sure. Nice. I'll if any come back, I'll let you know.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I always love to just hear that from different people too, because I always like to look into who these people are working with as well, and discover new music all the time. So shout out to all those people for sure. And is there anything, because you mentioned you've been working on some stuff kind of behind the scenes as well. Anything you can reveal about kind of what the next step is going to be, whether it's, new music or doing shows or whatever you got coming up?
Yeah, well, I have a show tomorrow, actually. So after this call, I'm going to go back to rehearsing.
Oh, nice.
That is, it's the first show where I've properly done my own stuff. And it's going to be like a live looping thing. So I've got my drum machine, keyboards, but also like a loop station. Somebody like making the beats live, which is, it's a step out of my comfort zone, because as you probably know, using FL, like you have all the plugins you can add and all the mixing that you can do, but you're doing it live and you don't have all of those. You don't have that time to sit there and EQ the kick or the snare the way you want. You just have to go with everything. So it's actually a really good experience, because you just have to learn to accept how you've presented the music. Make sure your rhythm's on point, make sure you're not making any mistakes. But like, the mistakes are fine, but like if you do like a rhythm and it's a little bit off or like a lot off, you have to start again because it's just, well, I feel like I have to start again because it's probably not what I intended it to be. So I'm looking forward to experiencing that, like being in front of people and being open to make mistakes. So that's stuff with the live shows that's happening. And with the new project, there will be a new project with Mello. I don't think I can say much about it, but in terms of going back to melody, I think I'm definitely going back to that kind of strong sense of melody throughout the whole album. And there will be some more features on there as well that we will let you guys know about.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm definitely excited for that. And I'm definitely excited for, what you're doing with the shows and everything coming up. So good luck on that, man. 'Cause that's
Thank you.
super awesome opportunity. And we're down to the last few questions here. These are ones I ask on every episode. The first one is, if you could go back 10 years ago and give yourself a piece of advice, or maybe not change anything at all, what do you think you would do?
I would tell myself that in 5 years, which will be like 2020 or 2019, not to take social media so seriously in terms of how much weight you put, like how much weight you give it for your creative stuff. So like that you can make a track, put it on social media, and don't judge that track by the amount of likes or comments or engagement that it gets. Just keep making music, and people will, like, if they find it and they like it, that's all you really want. At the end of the day, you don't need 2 million views and 50,000 likes or whatever it is. It's just like, you made some music. Did some people hear it? Did they like it? Brilliant. Move on to the next thing. Don't put so much weight on this social media stuff. Yeah.
And there's so much power in being able to affect just one person. If you can just get one person to believe in what you're doing and help them out in any way, like that's all you need to start and get the ball rolling. So I think a lot of people forget that. So I love that, honestly. And if we flip that, then we say 10 years from now, where do you envision yourself musically and in life in general?
Hopefully doing more live shows. It's been the way that people have connected with each other, like musicians have connected with their fans for decades, like however centuries or whatever it is. Doing live shows and connecting with your fans and new people. So I want to kind of get into that aspect of music a bit more, like performing for people, live shows. So yeah, maybe some festivals.
Yeah.
Doing things like that, traveling, doing some tours of America or Asia or something like that. So yeah, that's a goal for me.
Yeah. Hey, if you ever swing out this way, man, I'll definitely try to hit up a show for sure.
Nice 100%. One. Where are you?
I'm in Ohio. So I'm like near Cleveland area, Northeast Ohio. So yeah, but a lot of people don't come to Ohio these days. It's usually like they'll come to Columbus and then they might come to Cleveland, but it's not really like a super big destination to come anymore. It's kind of just, I think a lot of people aren't really booking shows up this way right now.
Yeah.
But, who knows, maybe one day. But yeah, if you're ever out this way, man, I'll definitely be trying to come to a show for sure. So
definitely.
Yeah, man.
I'll keep you updated.
Absolutely, man. And do you have any final words of wisdom today for the listeners?
Final words of wisdom, and something I need to keep in mind as well. Like, if you like it, stick with it. Like, make what you like. Don't be influenced. Obviously, it's nice to try and imitate others, and that's kind of like how we learn anyway. You imitate when you're learning a new language. You imitate. Like your parents and things like that, but like try to be yourself as much in your art as possible, and take pride in that kind of individuality that you create.
Yeah.
And run with it as far as you can.
Yeah. I'd say that's definitely one of the most important things you can do at the end of the day. So, yeah, man. Well, I got to say again, thanks for joining me, man. Thanks for wanting to be on the show today. That's all I have for you. But like I said, I'm going to be, staying up to date with your music and the shows and all that stuff. And congrats, man, because I think what you're doing is super awesome. And wish you all the best. And if you want to do this again anytime soon, let me know.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And like, this is amazing. This is like I think this is my first interview podcast that I've done. So it's been a pleasure, and like the questions were amazing, and looking forward to when this drops so I can share it with all my friends and family.
Thanks everyone for listening today. That was episode 228. We'll be back this time next week. As always, hit that support button on your podcast streaming platform if you'd like to send any funds, and feel free to leave us that 5-star rating if you enjoyed today's episode. And of course, if you want more in-depth content, definitely check out the Twitch stream, twitch.tv/AnthonyChurch24, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. But until next week, we'll see you then, and thanks for checking us out.